Hey, it's me, MLB. Here is That Side Character Chapter 6, and this one is titled Can't Stay Focused. Kenma didn't say anything as you talked. He just got the balm to rub gently onto your arm and then bandaged it up. It's fine though, I'm used to not having friends, they just are not leaving anyway, so it's better to be alone, right? You said to him, still continuing on from your previous comments. He nodded. He fixed your arm up as best he could and then packed the box away while you stayed up on the stool, sitting happily there. He closed the cupboard door and then stood up and walked off to get his bag, and you jumped off the stool and then followed him as he headed for the stairs to go to his room. For some reason he had thought that you would just leave after he fixed you up, but when you spoke from behind him, just inside his room upstairs, he jumped so hard he almost dropped his PSP. "Oh wow, you really can see your backyard from here," you said, running over to his window to look out. You looked left and then right multiple times, humming before letting out a confirmatory noise. "Yep, that right brick fence there is definitely taller than the left," you said with a firm head nod. "You can go now," Kenma suddenly said from behind you. Oh, but I really don't want to," you said. "We're friends, so I can stay for a little, right? I know I just said that thing about friends before, but you're cool." You turned back to his window and stared out again. "Have you tried to jump your back fence?" you asked him. You turned back around to see if he was going to reply, but he had already gotten himself happily set up on his bed and was consumed in his game again. Knowing you weren't going to get much of a conversation out of him now, you walked to your bag and pulled your homework out to do something at least. You were never very good at getting homework done, but finally you finished it and rolled onto your back from your stomach where you had been lying on the floor. "Finished!" you hollered at the top of your lungs, letting all that extra penned-up energy out through your voice. You rolled back onto your stomach and grinned at Kenma, who was giving you a shocked look from his bed. He had forgotten that you were there. "I'm going to go home, okay? See you tomorrow," you said, packing your bag and leaving. It all happened so quickly that it left Kenma a little bewildered. "So weird," he thought as he looked back down at his game as your footsteps disappeared off down the stairs. The next morning you jumped the fence into Kenma's backyard and ran over to look up at his window. "Kenma, open your back door so I can walk through. I'm not jumping the fence today." You were watching his curtains, but they didn't move, so you screamed out again. "Kenma!" Still no movement. "I'll sing the anthem again. Australians, all let us rejoice." Just then the back door to his house slid open, and you looked from his window, on the second story, to the door on the lower level and grinned. "Oh, you're quicker this time," you said happily as you walked towards him. "Why don't you just go to school the normal way? Why do you keep jumping into my backyard?" he asked in a softly annoyed voice as you marched into his house. "Because I can easily jump that side of your fence," you said, pointing to your right, which was towards his left side fence when you were looking out of his bedroom window. "But I can't clear the other one with my arm like this." You held your right arm up to show him. "Feels much better, by the way, thanks. Okay, come on, let's go." Kenma scrunched his nose a little, but followed anyway, tagging along behind you as you left his house. You waited for him while he locked his front door. Then you headed on to school together, with you talking to thin air about all kinds of things, and he played his game, not listening to a word you said. Once at school you parted ways and went to your locker, then headed to class. You felt happier that day. You had a friend, someone who didn't seem to be bothered by your presence. That afternoon you got your bag and books and then walked to Kenma's locker to wait for him to finish his after-school cleaning duties so you could walk home together. You saw him come out from the classroom and you smiled at him. "Done?" you asked happily as you moved out of the way so he could get to his locker. He nodded and opened his locker to get his bag and then pulled his PSP from his pocket and turned it on. "What game is that?" you asked him. "Monster Hunter," he replied, watching the little loading screen whir to life. "Fun?" you asked. He nodded. "I don't play games much. I can't focus enough to complete any missions," you admitted. "I just can't stay focused, full stop. To be honest, I always get sidetracked. There's always something else. Ice cream! Oh my gosh, I totally forgot about the ice cream. I want one now. Okay, I'm going to go, okay? See you later," you said before dashing off to the corner store before it closed for the night. Kenma looked up as you took off. Then he looked back down his PSP just as it started again where he'd left off, and as the game continued, he started tapping the keys, forgetting all about you. Happily, he headed home by himself and went up to his room, his peace and serenity. It was about 10 minutes later that he heard a sudden yell from the backyard and his face fell as he placed his hands, still holding the PSP, in his lap and looked up towards the window that had the curtains parted. "Kenma!" you shouted. "Go away," he groaned internally. "Are you there?" you shouted. He stayed completely still, refusing to breathe just in case you somehow heard him, and climbed up the side of his house. All went quiet, and he strained his ears to hear if you were still there, but it was completely silent outside, so he let out a small relieved sigh and went back to playing his game. Another 2 minutes passed, when all of a sudden he heard your voice again, but this time just outside his window, and he jumped so hard he dropped his PSP. "Oh, you are home," you said with delight, standing on the roof of his back porch, smiling at him through his closed window. "Let me in. Does this window open?" He got up, walked over to it, and then pulled the blind down, with much protesting from you. Sorry, but I can totally see that happening. Stay tuned for Chapter 7 coming tomorrow.